His name was Richard Hartwell, and at 47, he had everything money could buy except what truly mattered. Standing in his corner office on the 32nd floor, Richard gazed out at the city sprawling beneath him. The glass towers reflected the afternoon sun like mirrors of ambition. He'd built his investment firm from nothing, working 18-hour days for 2 decades. Now he had the penthouse, the cars, the reputation, and a growing emptiness that no amount of success could fill. The women in his world were polished and perfect. They knew the right restaurants, wore designer labels like uniforms, and spoke in careful words that revealed nothing real. 3 failed relationships with women from his social circle had taught him something important. Wealth attracts many things, but genuine connection isn't one of them. "Mr. Hartwell?" His assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "The window cleaning crew is here for the quarterly service." Richard barely registered the comment. He returned to his desk, surrounded by contracts and portfolios that once excited him but now felt hollow. Outside the window, a figure appeared, suspended by cables against the impossible blue sky. It was a woman in an orange safety suit, moving with practiced efficiency. But what caught Richard's attention wasn't her work. It was the baby carrier strapped securely to her chest. Inside it, a small child with curious dark eyes watched the world from dizzying heights, completely content in his mother's presence. Richard stood slowly, drawn to the window. The woman was in her early 30s, with warm brown skin and her hair pulled back in a practical braid. She worked with one hand, cleaning the glass in smooth strokes, while her other hand rested protectively on the baby's back. The child couldn't have been more than 8 months old. She glanced up and their eyes met through the glass. For a moment, Richard saw something he hadn't seen in years, a person fully present in their life, doing what needed doing, loving without reservation. No pretense, no performance. She smiled just slightly, then continued working. Richard couldn't shake that image from his mind. Over the next week, he found himself thinking about that window cleaner at odd moments, during board meetings, while reviewing quarterly reports, in the silence of his too-large apartment. There was something about her, the way she'd brought her child to work, making the best of circumstances that were clearly challenging, the quiet dignity in her movements, the absence of complaint or apology. He'd spent so much time with people who had every advantage and remained perpetually dissatisfied. This woman, dangling from a skyscraper with a baby on her chest, had radiated more peace than anyone he knew. 3 months passed before the cleaning crew returned. This time, Richard made sure he was standing by the window when she arrived. Same orange suit, same protective harness, same beautiful child, now bigger, more alert. He watched her work for several minutes before doing something. Impulsive, something the old Richard would have found undignified. He wrote on a piece of paper in large letters, "Coffee break?" Then he held it against the glass. She read it, surprised. Then she smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes, and nodded. 20 minutes later, Richard found himself in the building's cafeteria, sitting across from someone named Maya Rodriguez. The baby, a boy named Gabriel, sat contentedly in her lap, gumming a teething ring. "I'm sorry about bringing him," Maya said, not quite meeting Richard's eyes. "My sister usually watches him, but she's got the flu. The company lets me as long as I'm safe about it. The harness is specially designed." "Please don't apologize," Richard said quietly. "I think it's remarkable." Maya looked at him then, really looked, as if trying to determine whether he was mocking her. "I saw you 3 months ago," Richard continued. "I couldn't stop thinking about how you managed everything with such grace. I've spent my whole life building a career, and I'm not sure I've done anything half as important as what you do every day." Something shifted in Maya's expression, the wariness softening. "It's just what mothers do," she said simply. "You do what you have to for your children." They talked for 30 minutes. Richard learned that Maya had been married once, briefly, to a man who left when the pregnancy test came back positive. She'd been cleaning windows for 5 years. Good work that paid decently and had flexible hours. Her mother helped when she could, but she'd recently been diagnosed with diabetes and couldn't always manage an active baby. Maya never complained. She stated facts with calm acceptance. The same way she'd approached that window. This is the situation. This is what needs doing. When she stood to return to work, Richard found himself saying, Would you have dinner with me? Nothing fancy, just dinner. You could bring Gabriel. Maya hesitated, her hand instinctively protective on her son's back. Why? She asked, and the question wasn't hostile, just honest. Richard thought about that. Because talking to you for 30 minutes has been more real than anything I've experienced in months, and I'd like to know you better. I'm not one of those women you know, Maya said carefully. I shop at discount stores. I live in a one-bedroom apartment with my son. My idea of a good night is when he sleeps through till morning. Good, Richard said. Those women you're talking about? I'm tired of pretending with them. Their first dinner was at a neighborhood restaurant Maya chose. Nothing impressive, just honest food and friendly service. Gabriel sat in a high chair, delightedly mashing banana slices. Richard felt lighter than he had in years. Maya talked about her childhood in Texas, her parents who'd immigrated from Mexico, the values they'd instilled about hard work and family. She asked Richard about his life, and for the first time, he found himself speaking honestly about the loneliness of success, the relationships that looked perfect from outside but felt empty within. Money doesn't make you happy, Maya said, wiping banana from Gabriel's cheeks, but not having it makes everything harder. The trick is finding meaning that goes deeper than your bank account. It wasn't a revolutionary insight, but hearing it from someone who'd lived that truth made it real in a way that countless self-help books hadn't. They began seeing each other regularly. Richard kept it simple. Dinners, walks in the park with Gabriel in his stroller, movie nights at Maya's small apartment where Gabriel would fall asleep between them. Richard's friends noticed the change immediately. At a charity gala, his colleague Thomas cornered him by the bar. Who is she? Thomas asked. You've been different lately, calmer. Richard smiled. Her name is Maya. She's a window cleaner. And she's raising a son on her own. Thomas's expression flickered between confusion and concern. Richard, be careful. Women like that, they see a wealthy man as a solution to their problems. Richard felt something harden in his chest. You don't know her. I know the world, Thomas said. Don't let yourself be used. But Richard knew better. Maya never asked for anything. When he offered to help with expenses, she politely declined. When he bought a gift for Gabriel, she accepted it with grace but made sure he understood she didn't expect such things. She wasn't there for what he could provide. She was there because she genuinely enjoyed his company, and that was more valuable than anything money could buy. 6 months into their relationship, Richard met Maya's mother, Elena. She lived in a modest house filled with family photos and the smell of home cooking. Her handshake was firm despite the slight tremor from her condition. My daughter is strong, Elena said in slightly accented English, but she is also careful with her heart. It broke once. She won't let it break again. I understand, Richard said. Do you? Elena's dark eyes were sharp, kind, but assessing. She doesn't need to be rescued. She needs to be respected. If you can't tell the difference, please walk away now. Richard thought about that carefully. I think she's already rescued herself, he said finally. I'm just grateful she lets me be part of her life. Elena smiled, then satisfied. Over dinner, with Gabriel making happy sounds in his grandmother's arms, Richard felt something he'd been missing for years. The warmth of family, of people who cared about each other without condition or calculation. A year passed. Then another. Richard proposed not with a massive diamond or a dramatic gesture, but on an ordinary Tuesday evening in Maya's apartment. Gabriel, now 2.5, was finally asleep after his bedtime routine. They sat together on her worn but comfortable couch, and Richard simply said what was in his heart. I love you. I love Gabriel. I want to build a life with both of you, not to change who you are, but to share in it. Will you marry me? Maya was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft but steady. I need to know you understand. Gabriel will always come first. I'm not interested in becoming someone else, someone who fits better into your world. I know, Richard said. Your world is what I want to be part of. You've taught me what matters. She said yes. They married quietly, just family and a few close friends. Richard moved into a house that had a yard for Gabriel to play in, not a showpiece penthouse. He reduced his hours, delegating more, making space for what truly mattered. Maya continued her work for another year before deciding to start her own. Small business, a cleaning service that prioritized fair wages and working mothers. Richard helped with the business plan and initial investment, but it was Maya's vision and work ethic that made it succeed. Years passed in the best possible way, slowly, richly, filled with Gabriel's laughter and Maya's quiet strength. Richard learned to value ordinary moments. Breakfast together, helping with homework, family dinners where everyone shared their day. His old friends gradually fell away, unable to understand his choices. New friends appeared, people like Maya's family, whose wealth was measured in love and loyalty. On Gabriel's 8th birthday, standing in their backyard watching Maya help their son cut his cake, Richard felt a completeness he'd once thought impossible. Thomas approached him at a business conference months later. "You gave up so much," he said, shaking his head. "The penthouse, the lifestyle." Richard smiled. "I gave up nothing. I finally gained everything."